2.70 seconds, and indeed the mark to beat still 2.20, but this is the man that everybody expects will not only take the #1 spot, but will indeed reset the current U.S.HRA Association national elapsed time record. Last night in preliminaries on a record of 2.10 seconds, this man, Tom Martin, ran 2.07, and he's shooting for under 2 seconds flat here this afternoon. Martin on the starting line with a fuel-injected 540 cubic inch Chevrolet machine known as Mud Patrol. That's the sign on the side of this 1932 Ford 5-window coupe that a lot of drivers hate to see.
Well, I'll tell you, he's probably got one of the most dedicated crews also. His dad, John, and his mom, Norma, are his crew.
That's right.
And along with Greg Stone, they've got themselves one powerful machine.
Like I said, 2.07 seconds in preliminaries. Now looking for a new world record. The nitrous oxide injected, fuel injected, alcohol burning Chevy powered machine that won the Fall Nationals last year also has a chance to break into the #1 spot in the National Points Championship chase if he can finish in the top 8 here tonight. A lot of pressure on young Tom Martin, the 375-pound 23-year-old from Portage, Indiana.
Well, if anybody can take the pressure, he can.
No question. If he can get this thing off the line in good form, we're going to see an unbelievable pass. RPM's up. Martin looks at the gauges, building up engine temperature. He won't leave the line until he is satisfied everything is perfect. Checks the belts. Takes aim at the finish line. Drops the RPM, clears out the throttle, and now gets ready for what may be the quickest run in U.S.HRA Association history. Man, he is unbelievable ride! Unbelievable ride! The car was literally airborne across the finish line. Look at him! Tom Martin knows it was a great run.
You know, when these guys...
Looking at the replay, Martin's machine launched beautifully. You can see it relatively rough up the starting line, but Martin never thought about lifting the throttle. The front wheels come up, and now it's a real ride. Manhandling the machine across the finish line. The mark to beat for the #1 spot was 2.20 seconds. The official U.S.HRA Association record was 2.10 seconds. And race fans, Tom Martin's elapsed time, 2.00 seconds. The quickest run ever for an 80-foot track and the wildest pass of the event.
I'll tell you, was one beautiful ride.
Who is going to win? So
absolutely incredible. Tom Martin takes over the #1 spot. Now he has a chance to take over the national championship points chase. Here is an incredible piece of equipment that may be able to threaten Tom Martin's Mud Patrol. This is Tim Ritchie from Buchanan, Michigan, with the Learning to Fly Jeep Funny Car, powered not by a Chevy, not by a Ford, but by a 512 cubic inch Dodge Wedge engine. One of the only Chrysler-powered machines in professional mud racing. And by the way, it uses carburetors of nitrous oxide, no supercharger, Shelley. Remember, all nitrous oxide does is add extra oxygen to the engine. Just by pushing the button, or in this case, stomping on the throttle, these guys can add about 400 to 600 extra horsepower. A great run for the Chrysler wedge-powered machine. Now, Tim Ritchie, during last year's competition, did some incredible jobs of driving this Chrysler-powered machine at many of the U.S.HRA Association national events. He picked up a second and a third towards the end of the season, and as a matter of fact, is without a doubt one of the strongest running Chrysler products in the country. And you can see when he left the starting line, the rear end came up in the air, and that caused this bucking Bronco motion all the way down the pit. But still, Tim kept his throttle in it all the way. The elapsed time, 2.42 seconds. One of the quickest passes ever for the Buchanan, Michigan 20-year-old. So 2.42 seconds will give him the 4th spot right now. Tremendous effort. This is Mike Erderly, the Walkerton, Indiana driver of the 1964 Corvette called Mud Shark. And we had a chance to look at this machine up close. The United States HRA Association Championship Mud Racing Trail has a lot of wild racers, but none strikes fear into the hearts of competitors and even officials as much as the Mud Shark 1964 Chevy Corvette out of the state of Indiana. Mike Erderly, the man who does the driving of this machine, is well known around the country for some of the wildest rides in this sport. And Mike, this car has got to have more power than any other mud machine before it.
I think it's real even with a lot of the other vehicles. We probably only running about 1,200 horse. Some of the vehicles are running full aluminum funny car top fuel motors, and they're making more power than we are.
This is basically a cast iron 468 cubic inch production Chevy motor, isn't it?
Right. It's all Chevrolet except for the Carrillo steel rods, and it's a truck Chevrolet block even.
But this particular machine has always given some of the wildest performances in the history of this association. This thing is an absolute handful to control.
It's a real short wheelbase compared to a lot of the other vehicles. It was built 4 years ago, and it's sort of a dinosaur in the sport right now.
But even so, it's one of the most popular, there's no question. And without a doubt, any machine that can keep up with this is running good. Besides that, it's got to give you the rides of your life.
It's like a $20, $25 ride at the fair if you could get one.
Early on the starting line, a fuel-injected, methanol-burning, supercharged, big block Chevrolet in a car with an incredibly short wheelbase that is beyond difficult to control. Erdely has ice water in his veins. Every pass he makes of this thing is one of the scariest rides you'll ever see. The mark to beat, too flat. It would take a new world's record to get the #1 spot back. But the Mud Shark is one of the wildest in the business. Keep your eyes on the incredible topless vet.
Here we go. The Corvette is about ready to...
Across the finish line, knocking down the finish line pole, and Erdely takes another incredibly wild ride. The question is, though, the elapsed time. Because every time this car goes down the racetrack, Shelley, it may get completely sideways, but it is always one of the quickest out there.
Now, did he hit the pole after he crossed the finish line?
That's right. It will be a disqualification because he did tear the pole out of the ground. You can see it right there, nailing the pole at the finish line as Mike locked up the brakes. He was disqualified, but the elapsed time was 2.35 seconds sideways at the finish line. That would have been good enough for the #3 spot, but unfortunately, you can see the crew down there having to pound in that finish line stake again. You know, earlier we saw Melvin Brown doing the driving of the Bud car, the Jeep Funny car originally run by Ron Haverty. This is Melvin's own machine, the Blue Max, and a couple of years ago, Shelley, this was one of the very first lightweight mud racers in the Midwest, and it was a killer. This is a fuel-injected, nitrous oxide-injected 510 cubic inch Chevy power machine. It doesn't weigh that much, about 2,400 pounds. Like I said, 2 or 3 years ago, this was the state-of-the-art in mud racing.
We'll see if he can let it fly state-of-the-art or not.
Well, like I said, remember, after Tom Martin's 2-second flat run, it takes literally a new world record to get the #1 spot back.
Well, we all wish him the best. He's already had a chance at this once. He should know what he's doing by now.
That's true. U.S.HRA Association allows drivers to run more than one vehicle in competition. And Melvin's the only one that's taking advantage of that rule book loophole so far this season. A great run! Melvin Brown's little Blue Max heads into the safety net. That's what it's there for.
Well, it was good enough to get mud on me.
We've been hit a couple of times down here tonight. I'll tell you, these guys with these incredible runs. I'll tell you, the safety net in itself is a unique innovation of the United States Auburn Association. This organization was the first to use the catch net like you see on an aircraft carrier to slow these machines down. On the replay, you can see the machine literally torquing itself sideways through the pit. Melvin came out of the pit. The kill switch shut down the motor from the starting line. He runs a career best elapsed time, 2.25 seconds for Melvin Brown's Blue Max. I'll tell you, the Chevrolet and that thing was pumping. That's the quickest he's ever gone, right into the safety net. That's good enough for the #4 spot. In the final standings, the Mud Patrol 1932 Ford 5-window coupe runs 2 seconds flat for the #1 spot and the quickest run in 80-foot-long pit history, the U.S.HRA Association. The #2 spot, the beautiful Shake Me machine, virtually an identical piece of equipment to Tom Martin's Mud Patrol at 2.20 seconds sideways and upside down. The Instant T of Chad Miller, the 1927 Ford T Street Roadster, runs 2.21 seconds for the 3rd spot. Melvin Brown's Blue Max at 2.25 seconds finishes 4th, and the Learning to Fly machine of Tim Ritchie with Chrysler Power finishes in the #5 spot at 2.42 seconds. That's the top 5 in Mud Championship action.